living organisms need to eat to get the nutrients. The nutrients help them to survive and to grow taller, right? So, but the problem is the living things, whether it's the plant or animal, they cannot synthesize these nutrients. So how do they obtain these nutrients? For the animal, they obtain that by consuming the foods. While for the plants, they obtain that by pulling the nutrients from the soils. And most of the nutrients, they are the biological macromolecules. So what is the macromolecules? So like its name, macromolecules. Okay, so it means that it's a giant molecules. Okay, big or giant molecules. There are four major biological macromolecules, which are carbohydrates, lipid, protein, and nucleic acids. So the macromolecules, they are, like I have said before, they are big or giant molecules, and they contain the carbon. So let's take a look at the pictures here. In these pictures, you can see that all the molecules that have the carbon. So that's why they are the macromolecules. So macromolecules is a polymer. It's a polymer. Poly means many, while mer means small subunit or monomer. So in short, polymers is a large molecules that consist of many smaller subunits or monomers. So now we're going to discuss about the first macromolecule, which is the carbohydrate. So before I learn more about the carbohydrates, can we mention the food that contain carbohydrates? Okay, good job. So the food that contain carbohydrates are rice, potato, what else? Corn, sugar, candy, and many more. And all these foods which contains the carbohydrates, they contain the compound carbon, hydrogens, and oxygens. And the general formula for these carbohydrates will be shown here. Since carbohydrate is a macromolecules, so it means that carbohydrates is also a polymer. So it means that it composed of numerous monomers. The monomers of the carbohydrate, we call it as monosaccharides, while the polymers of the carbohydrate, we call it as polysaccharides. There are three types of carbohydrates, which are monosaccharide, disaccharides, and the last one, polysaccharides. First, let's discuss about the first type of carbohydrate, which is the monosaccharide. Just like it names, monosaccharide consists of one monomer. Okay, and these monosaccharides, they have two main functions. The first one, they use as the source of energy. Why they are used as the source of energy? It's because they have a large numbers of the carbon hydrogens bond. When these carbon hydrogens bond are break, they will release the energy. Okay, the second one, they are used as the building blocks for the larger molecules. For example, like the glucose, they are used as the building blocks for the larger molecules. The polysaccharides, such as the cellulose, glycogen, and many more. And so there are three types of monosaccharides, which are glucose, fructose, and galactose. These three monosaccharides, they have a slight difference in the structure. Now let's discuss about the second carbohydrate, which is the disaccharides. So the di and the disaccharides means two. There are three types of disaccharides, which are maltose, which is the combinations of glucose and mostly found in the food. The second one is the sucrose, which is the combinations of glucose and fructose, and mostly found in the fruits and vegetables. The third one is the lactose, which is the combinations of the glucose and galactose and mostly found in the milk. And now the last types of carbohydrates, which is the polysaccharides. Poly means many, so we know that polysaccharides consist of lots of monosaccharides. And there are three types of polysaccharides. The first one is the starch, which consists of amylose and amylopectin. The second one is the glycogen, which is the amylopectin. The third one is the cellulose, which is the beta glucose with 1,4-glycosidic linkage. So I have mentioned that starch consists of amylose and amylopectin, right? So let's discuss the differences between this amylose and amylopectin. Let's talk about the first one. The first one, amylose, is an unbranched chain polymers of glucose, while the amylopectin is the branched chain of the glucose. Amylose consists of one bonding, which is the alpha-1,4-glycosidic linkage. While for the amylopectin, it consists of two bonding, which are alpha-1,4-glycosidic linkage, the same with the amylose, but the difference is they also have alpha-1,6-hydroglycosidic linkage at the branch point. And the last one, amylose is more soluble in the water, while the amylopectin is less soluble in the water. There are four basic groups of lipids, which are the triglycerides, the phospholipids, the steroids, and the waxes. Although these four groups of lipids may differ in many aspects, but they all have common things that they are insoluble in the water. You may have noticed that the lipid and the water do not mix. For example, like the yellow color oil in the beaker of the water shown in this picture. So even if you stir them for several minutes, even for several hours, the oil simply will still do not mix with the water, or they are separate from the water. This is because lipid is hydrophobic. So the prefix hydro in Latin means water, while the phobic means fear of. So when you hear that the lipid is hydrophobic, it simply means that the lipid cannot mix with the water. Let's take a closer look at the first group of the lipid, which is the triglycerides. Triglycerides consist of fats and oils. Fats is solid and room temperature, and they are used by the animals for the protections, lubrications, and the long-term energy storage, while oil is liquid at the room temperature. They are used by the plants for the long-term energy storage. At molecular level, triglycerides contain of two subunit molecules, which are glycerol and fatty acids. Now let's take a look at the fatty acids. Fatty acids have three main parts, which are a chain of hydrogens and carbon atoms, which we call as hydrocarbon chain. Second, a methyl group at one end, and the third one is an acid group at the other end. Fatty acids can be saturated or unsaturated. A fatty acid that has only single carbon-to-carbon bond is known as saturated fatty acid. This is because the carbon chain is saturated with all the hydrogens that it can hold. While for the unsaturated fatty acids has one to several double bonds. These double bonds result in the kinks in the fatty acid chain, and it will affect the melting point of the fats. Let's talk about the second group of the lipid, which is the phospholipid. So phospholipid is similar to the triglycerides that they contain glycerol and two fatty acids. What's the difference is that the phosphate group rather than the third fatty acids is attached to the third carbon of glycerol. Phospholipids are extremely important because they have unique properties in regard to the water. The phosphate head of the molecule is hydrophilic or water-loving, which means that they mix well with the water, while the fatty acid tails is hydrophobic, which means that they do not mix well with the water. Because of these unique properties, phospholipids tend to arrange themselves so that the phosphate head will only interact with water, while the fatty acid tails will curl inwards away from the water molecule. And phospholipids, they are important component of the plasma membrane of the cells. Now let's talk about the third group of lipid, which is the steroids. Steroids compose of 4 fused carbon, which is the different functional group are attached to them. One of the most well-known steroids is cholesterol. Cholesterol serves as the precursor for the synthesis of the other steroids such as the testosterone, estrogen, vitamin D, and cortisons. The cholesterol that present in the plasma membrane, it stabilizes the membrane, while the hormone like the testosterone and estrogen, they only have a small difference in their functional group, but they have a large difference in their effect to the organisms. Let's talk about the last group of lipid, which is wax. Wax is non-polar and they repel to water. So wax can be found in the protective coats in the plants or the other surface of the animals. So wax are produced in the ears to protect the eardrums. And for additions, the bees construct the honeycombs from the wax. So that's all for our topic today. So how was it? Is it difficult? I think not, right? So after watching this video, I hope please do the exercise and don't forget to submit it on Edmodo. And see you next time. Bye.